our national game. It's perfectly suited to the rugged New Zealand temperament.
Rugby, our nation's favourite blood sport. From halfbacks to halftime oranges, we can't get enough of our boys scrumming. And sure, there's been some tough moments over the past decade. But isn't that all behind us now? 5 years on from the Respect and Responsibility Review, isn't everything fixed? Or is a deeply entrenched culture actually hard to uproot? And when am I going to make the team?
So the rule basically is if you score, you get to go again.
Okay, all right.
So I'll go. So that was just the warm-up.
I played first 15, which is like the pinnacle of high school rugby.
Is it hardcore first 15
It's
rugby?
hardcore. Like, we'd get 1,000 people at our games. Like,
Fucking hell.
yeah, it was crazy.
I couldn't get my dad at my soccer game.
I heard.
Let me try it again. Okay.
Okay, ready?
Okay, go. Do you feel like New Zealand Rugby has kind of a responsibility to the wider New Zealand public?
Oh, absolutely. We have a great sense of duty of care to everyone that participates in our game, over 155,000 people around the country, and then more broadly than that, people engaging with our teams and being spectators. And we know that people take it incredibly seriously and incredibly passionate about everything we do. And that's just not about the teams in black performing, that's about things we do off the field, choices we make as an organisation. We're under constant scrutiny, and we certainly accept that. And we want to be engaging in those conversations.
And do you think that you have a responsibility to those wider groups because you can have an impact on those wider groups?
Yeah, we see rugby as having that ability to influence and change behaviours and being a real force for good in a whole lot of areas where it can be a real powerful vehicle for helping change.
Because I see it that way as well. Like, I genuinely see rugby as being a very powerful body that could impact New Zealand culture as a whole.
One of the seminal moments in modern rugby history was ASB CEO,
I do
Barbara
know.
Chapman, actually using New Zealand Rugby's gala night at the Rugby Awards it wasn't a full frontal attack on rugby, but it said these incidents are damaging rugby's relationship with New Zealand. And it was in the wake of the Chiefs.
Yeah, the year of 2016.
Yeah, which, was probably unfairly called Strippergate when really it should have been Rugby Buffet Gate.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a pre-2016, post-2016 world? I mean, I know we had the Respect and Responsibility Review, but do you see that as having had a measurable impact?
I haven't yet.
Right.
Not to get into all the weeds and detail of it, it held a mirror up to our faces around how we could certainly improve our environments and get better. And it's fair to say COVID had a significant impact on that work at a time where a lot of resourcing right across the game was affected. And
what was the impact on that work? It had to be cut? Or?
Aspects of it in terms of resourcing it. So we're just getting back to a stage now, you'll see through some of the work we've done in Black Ferns Review, some of the announcements made recently around Pacific Advisory Committee. They were actually initiatives out of the Respect and Responsibility Review that we're starting to pick back up again and work towards.
Okay.
So it's certainly not been forgotten in totality. That is an area which we're really serious about standing up again.
There we go. That was good. All right, my turn.
Okay, yeah. No, go on, give me a little one. Let's see what happens.
Well, it's just mostly technique. Okay. So I'm just planting my foot and...
Oh, fucking hell.
I won't run it.
Okay, go. I'm going to get you cancelled. Is it too much for me to expect that New Zealand Rugby could be leading the charge on this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I think it would be fantastic if they did.
Yeah.
An organisation like New Zealand Rugby that has so much influence.
Yeah.
Rugby is so meaningful to so many people. And I know people who love rugby are very diverse. Yeah. It's not just that the only people who love rugby are cisgender men who go out after the game, get drunk and sexually harass women. They're a small proportion. But I think that if the organisation really took the lead on that, that sends a very strong message to these people that this is not what rugby is about.
Yeah.
Rugby is about community.
Yeah.
And I think it can be used really as a really strong force for good.
Like, why isn't there an All Blacks campaign against domestic violence?
Exactly.
We have kind of a acknowledged culture of like toxic masculinity in New Zealand. Domestic violence rates are extremely high. And I immediately go like, okay, who would be the best people to have an impact on views of masculinity in New Zealand? And then I immediately go, well, the All Blacks. Would you agree with that?
Look, I think we are working really hard within New Zealand Rugby to create great and safe environments where people can be themselves, feel safe, be vulnerable to be themselves.
I'm so sorry. I'm just going to come back to the question of going like,
is there a reason, for example, why the All Blacks might not have like front a campaign about domestic violence? Or about...
no, I mean, it's something that we that direct question, you know, we haven't thought that, you know, directly about, I suppose. So while I understand, you know, there may be a question around going straight to the All Blacks to...
that's who I want.
Well, but, you know, we can obviously have conversations about that, but I think our focus has been strong emphasis on creating greater awareness about issues and helping and supporting people.
But what better way to create awareness than through a public campaign? I guess there are so many things culturally about New Zealand where I go like, this doesn't match up with where I want us to be. And domestic violence to me feels like one of those issues that's almost like you're never going to meet someone who's pro-domestic violence. So it's almost like it's an issue we can all agree on. It's a very pressing issue in New Zealand. And when New Zealand Rugby says we have a responsibility outside of the teams, to the spectators, you know, to the culture as a whole, I go, I guess, are you doing enough?
Again, it's cultural.
Yeah.
These players are just reluctant to say anything that will make them stand out.
Couldn't it have a wider impact, though, for the All Blacks to be at the front of something that was basically saying, like, these sorts of attitudes don't fly in rugby?
I guess from their point of view, that would be them admitting that there is a problem there. I agree with you, I would.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't hold my breath, really.
Okay.
I wonder if it's because there are players in rugby that have had domestic violence. I'm not sure if they've been convicted, but they've certainly...
That came up recently when they made a post about thanking the women in their lives.
Yes,
do you remember
yeah,
that? Yes.
yeah.
It's almost like I think in order to take a stand on something, you have to be unimpeachable, and the All Blacks, when it comes to domestic violence,
Are not.
When you saw the International Women's Day post, were you like, oh, no?
Well, I was overseas at the time, so there were a few phone calls when I woke up. I woke up in somewhere in the UK, and there were a few interesting conversations trying to understand that. Positive intention, not the right outcome in terms of execution, obviously, and we've worked really hard at that in terms of understanding.
One of the things I guess that this comes to, and this is really the most crass way of putting it, but like, is it that the All Blacks couldn't front a domestic violence campaign because there are people in the All Blacks who have had allegations of that sort of thing?
We're the lads, we're the team, we've scored goals you won't believe. You can't play, so you better give it up. We're the team to win the cup.
Oh, look, that's not being, as I said before, we're on a journey starting from a wide focus around the entire game approach here. Anything that compromises the reputation of the game, it concerns me. So any of these incidences or anything that can happen around the game, I take that deeply personally. And I know a lot of our leading
just
people
because
do as well.
violence is bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not right, and then it's not good for our game. So it's broader.
So it's a two-pronged approach. It's not good for the game, and it's bad.
Yeah. Well, it's.
Do you think that rugby impacted your relationship with women initially?
Oh no, for sure. So like a lot of young men, like we don't grow up in environments that allow us to kind of talk and express ourselves.
Yeah.
And especially if you're going to a boys' school, the only time you're interacting with women is when you're on the piss.
Yeah.
on the weekends after a rugby game.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of other guys that came out of high school after 4 years straight having only interacted with women in that environment. First time they're meeting women is at university and they just have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, fuck, because I guess if you're a teenage boy, you'd be like, well, the only thing that this person provides is sex.
And the only way I could talk to them is if I'm drunk.
Yeah, fuck.
So, you know, you have no idea how to build platonic, constructive relationships with women. And most of them luck out because they get to play professional rugby.
Yeah.
So they kind of get to just continue in that bubble, and that's the scary thing.
Yeah.
Is that it was scary when it was a prospect of guys that did it for 4 years in high school.
Yeah, right.
Imagine guys that are professional rugby players that do it for 20 years.
So when guys who are professional rugby players get in trouble, it must be such a shock for them.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
It really
they
is.
must just be like, what is going on?
Look at me, this is the consequences to my actions.
Yeah.
You know, when we look at sports cultures, there's often a real culture of silence around violence against women. So people, they observe a behaviour and they know that it's not okay. So whether that is, at the strip club after a game where, someone breaches the boundaries of a dancer, just standing back and letting that happen.
Right.
And, we can think about that culture of silence in relation to kind of groups of spectators. We can also think of it in relation to organisations. And that's where I think that an organisation like New Zealand Rugby should be asking themselves some questions about how complicit are we in this culture of silence.
Yeah, right.
They're the ultimate bystander.
Exactly, that's it.
When you talk about women not wanting to come forward and stuff because of, I guess, the pressure that's put on them and I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but, this is not the first time we've tried to do this episode.
Right.
Did you know we've tried to do this episode once before on New Zealand Rugby and the issues with women and violence?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We tried to do an episode on it in my first season of Bad News, and then TVNZ were like, we're not going to put it out. It was after the Chiefs scandal, which was in 2016.
The stripper one?
Yeah. So the woman they hired to strip for them, she ended up doing a few sexual acts on the players, some that were consensual, as in she agreed to do it for money, and some that weren't consensual, as in not consensual on her side.
Yeah.
And so, the provocation for the episode was that I went to the Chiefs office and I asked for the money that they didn't pay her for the consensual sex acts.
I'm just looking for, your accounts department. I'm trying to collect a debt just for the money that the players failed to pay the stripper they hired at Mad Monday.
I got immediately taken into an office for a meeting with the CEO of the Chiefs at the time, where we had a long chat about what was I doing here and what did I want to know, etc., etc., etc. Admittedly, I was being provocative in my approach.
They generally don't like being provoked.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Badly, yeah.
Holy shit.
Really badly. We had a chat. They asked for my contact information. I gave them my information freely. Anyway, when we left the Chiefs office, about 15 minutes later, I got a call from New Zealand Rugby being like, what are you doing? And they were quite aggressive in tone on the phone with me in a way that I was instantly intimidated by.
Wow.
And then I got a text from an employer of mine, the Sunday Star Times, who was not related to this at all. New Zealand Rugby had contacted him and asked what I was doing there. And I got a message from him saying, what are you doing with New Zealand Rugby?
Wow.
So it just struck me that, I literally present as I present now, which is as an idiot, that I was inquiring about something, albeit in a provocative manner, but within half an hour I had kind of hostile communication from New Zealand Rugby, and then subsequently separate employers contacted about something that had nothing to do with them. So I guess my question is to you, does that strike you as unusual?
Well, it's a long time ago, and it's well before, I guess, I was in the role that I'm in now.
Yeah.
So I can't comment too much.
That's what they actually said to me on the phone in 2018 about the Chiefs stuff. They also said it's a long time ago.
The fact that it was, in your words, a long time ago does not resonate with me.
What I'm trying to get at is
No, I'm sure it hasn't, because time and time again, rugby players in this country misbehave and then nobody addresses it because we treat them like gods. Well, I'm not going to treat them that way. I'm going to treat them like they've done something wrong and they haven't faced the consequences.
Okay. That response suggests to me that, again, that culture of silence is coming through, and that culture of cover-up. Rather than seeing this is a really important issue, harm has been done, and we really, really want to do something very meaningful to address this.
The discomfort I felt with both the fact that she was a woman and also existing within the system. And at the time, I remember being like, I don't know how to reconcile these two things of like, I can't be angry at you as a person, but as a mouthpiece for this organisation, well, you fucked it.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me how the comedy piece works? Because it sounds like it's quite serious. And this is where I don't have a lot of experience. But how do you actually...
Well, I can send you a rundown of the episode if you like. Basically, I mean, I don't really want to be on the phone explaining how the comedy of it works.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
I don't know what to make of that. Maybe it's not that funny. I was, in my mind, in a position of power there. And I guess that experience made me go like, fuck, if you were feeling confident, you would be immediately destabilised. And if you weren't confident, what is your recourse?
Yeah. I think it's very confronting, particularly when it is such a big, well-resourced organisation. I think sporting bodies, you know, in a number of different countries often wield a huge amount of power.
Yeah, right.
And it is often unfettered power.
So how do we fetter it?
I don't know.
Okay. Fucking shit, fuck it. I hope that thing fucking knocks you out. Okay, and you have to go full pace.
Okay.
Don't be a pussy about it. Am I allowed to say that in the politics of this episode? You piece of shit!
I'm outside.
To who is New Zealand Rugby accountable? And who is regulating you in that sense?
Well, ultimately, as a management team and executive and a wider staff, we're accountable to our board.
Right. One of the things I guess, like when I look at the Respect and Responsibility Review, I read that and I go, yeah, that's good stuff. And then I go, one of the things that happened recently, for example, is the government pulled some funding, as I understand it, because you didn't meet the gender quota on the board. So to me, that just goes like, well, there's an example of not acting maybe with the necessary haste to rebalance some of these issues.
So first things first, accept the feedback around the governance. We've gone
that there aren't enough women on the board.
We've gone from 1 to 3 in the last couple of years. We're working hard at getting to some
All
of
that
it
says to me, I'm so sorry, is that until a couple of years ago there was only one woman on the board.
Well, if you go a few years back before that, there were none. So accept that. I don't think we're at all hiding from that, and we acknowledge that we're working really hard to be better in this space. Obviously, the Sport New Zealand focus for national sporting organisations around governance is 40%, so we're still shy of that.
Every other sporting body has met that target.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. So we acknowledge, we've got more work to do.
It does make me go like, how can you encourage male rugby players to respect women when the institution itself doesn't?
Yeah, and then you get a report into the Black Ferns culture that says the very people that should be pushing that message have let down women badly.
Yeah.
Doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. It feels a bit bleak, actually.
It is absolutely fucking insane, the kind of stuff that goes on.
Yeah, of like there's so much emphasis maybe put on the individual players who fuck up, and it's like actually they're like, if you come out of the system by the sounds of it and don't fuck up, that's a miracle.
It's a miracle. So it's a crazy fucking rabbit hole, old rugby, but
but you gotta love it, eh?
Oh, there's nothing better than that. Sad day.
One of the most annoying parts of my personality I've discovered in doing this series is complete impatience for incremental change. And I hear that. You're not the first person to say to me, we acknowledge this, we need more time. And what I keep coming back to is, okay, but when do we get more than an acknowledgement? When do we get a moment where we say, you've had the time and you've not done enough?
Well,
because there are people who would argue now is that time.
Yeah, and I guess I would say that we are doing a huge amount in this space. Having conversations on a principled basis like we are today, we think is really healthy for the game. We think it shows a willingness to front these issues head on and be part of the conversation. We understand that everyone won't always agree with what we're doing, but at the same time, we can only say again that we're working really hard.
I guess I can say that chatting to you is at least one tangible difference since when we tried to do it in 2018. Somebody was prepared to talk.
Yeah.
And then I hope, maybe in 5 years we'll meet and it won't be, we're working on it. It'll be, here's what we worked on.
Why don't we do it sooner than that?
Yeah, okay, all right, great. So the timeline's tighter than that.
No, I said, why don't we do it sooner? 5 years is a long time to wait. I mean, God, anything could happen.
Where are you going to grab her?
So I want to get like around here. Is that cool?
I'm going quite high.
Is that cool with you, Soph?
Yeah, that's cool.
Sned, do you want to get like just right around like there, similar spot?
Sort of area.
Yeah. Okay.
You got this, girl. You got this. Okay.
Okay. Ready and.
Go. I did nothing in that lift. I did nothing.
Did you just feel Alice let go?